Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're looking at a pretty hot topic,
Yeah.
AI and sustainability.
Yeah. It's
We've all heard about how these big AI models are changing the world,
mhm.
but you know what we don't hear as much about?
Mm.
The environmental impact.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Luckily, we've got a fantastic research paper here
Okay.
from Capgemini Invent.
I've heard of them.
They did a really deep dive
How'd they-
into how much energy these models use.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? They came up with some really interesting potential solutions too.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
One of the things that really jumped out at me
Okay.
was this stat about how much more energy AI can use compared to traditional computing.
Oh yeah.
We're not talking about like a little bit more. We're
Right.
talking about some of these models using
Yeah.
4,600 times
Whoa.
more energy.
4,600 times.
You're kidding?
I know. That's what I said. I mean, can you imagine?
That's insane.
Yeah.
So where's all this energy even going? Well, the paper breaks it down into
That's
two
not-
main areas of environmental impact. They
Yeah.
call them operational
Mm-hmm.
and embodied.
Embodied.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've heard that one before.
So operational impact is basically
Yeah.
all the resources it takes to run the AI,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
electricity, water, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Embodied impact is more about
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that goes into making the hardware in the first place.
Oh, okay.
Like all the mining manufacturing
Right.
and even what happens to it when we're done with it.
Oh, that makes sense. Like the whole life cycle.
Exactly. It's not just about what happens when it's running.
Right.
It's about the whole picture.
That's really interesting.
And to really drive this point home,
Okay.
they use this really cool example of a model company.
A model company.
Yeah, they're basically
Yeah.
trying to show how these impacts play out
Okay.
in like a real business setting
I see.
instead of just throwing a bunch of abstract numbers at us,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because it lets us see
Yeah,
like the tangible consequences, you know?
absolutely.
And what's crazy is
Right.
they found that generative AI, even though it's like a
Right.
relatively small part of the company's
Right.
total AI portfolio,
Yeah.
it actually accounts for almost all of the
Yeah.
environmental impact.
How is that possible?
Well, it turns out
Okay.
generative AI only makes up like
Mhm.
29%
Okay.
of their AI portfolio,
Yeah.
but it's responsible for, get this,
Okay.
99.9%.
99.9%.
Yeah.
So almost all of it. But how?
It's all about the scale.
Scale.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
thing about something like ChatGPT,
Okay.
millions of people are using it all over the world,
That's true.
and all that usage adds up to a pretty big...
Wow. So even though it's like
Yeah.
a smaller part of the overall AI landscape,
Mm-hmm.
the sheer scale of it
Yeah.
really tips the scales.
Exactly. And it's not just about what's happening now.
Right.
This report actually looks ahead
Oh, cool.
to 2030.
2030. Where?
And they've come up with
Yeah.
some potential scenarios
Right.
for what AI's environmental footprint might look like.
And what are those scenarios?
Well, they range from
Yeah.
moderate adoption
Okay.
with limited efficiency gains
Mhm.
all the way to
Yeah.
really rapid adoption.
Okay.
But with
Yeah.
groundbreaking advancements
Oh, wow.
in the hardware.
So it's like a range of possibilities,
Yeah,
depending on how things play out.
exactly.
That's fascinating.
And there's one scenario in particular that I thought was really
Yeah.
kind of a cautionary tale.
Oh, man.
They call it
Yeah.
high adoption without boundaries.
High adoption without boundaries, that sounds a little scary.
It is a little bit.
So what happens in this scenario?
Well, basically,
Wow.
generative AI just explodes in popularity, but companies don't really do anything
Oh.
to limit usage or
Right.
prioritize efficiency.
So it's like a free-for-all?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, boy. And what are the consequences of that?
Well, they project that
Mm.
energy usage could increase
Yeah.
by a factor of
Yeah?
24.4.
24.4.
Yeah, and greenhouse gas emissions by 18.6.
Oh, my God.
It's pretty sobering.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of what could happen.
But the good news is
Okay.
they also explore some scenarios
Yeah.
where things turn out a little bit more positive.
Okay.
One of them
Mm-hmm.
is called limited growth
Okay.
with efficiency breakthrough.
Limited growth with efficiency breakthrough.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Well, in this scenario,
Yeah.
everyone's really making an effort
Mm-hmm.
to decarbonize electricity grids
Okay.
improve hardware efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
and really promote
Yeah.
responsible AI usage.
So it's a more balanced approach where
Sure.
growth is managed.
And we're focusing on making things more efficient.
Exactly.
What kind of impact does that have?
Well, in this scenario,
Okay.
energy use actually
Yeah.
drops.
Drops?
Yeah, by 70%.
Wow. That's incredible.
I know. And greenhouse gas emissions plummet
Okay.
by 83%.
83%.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it shows that a
Yeah.
more sustainable path
Yeah.
is definitely possible.
Absolutely. And it really highlights
Yeah.
how important our choices are.
Right. It's not set in stone.
Yeah, we're not just on a runaway train to environmental disaster.
Yeah, exactly. There's hope.
There is.
It's empowering to know that we have agency.
Yeah, and it really underscores the need
Yeah.
to be proactive
Right.
about mitigating AI's impact.
So what are some of the things we can do?
Well, the report actually talks about that.
Oh, perfect. Let's dive into those solutions next time.
Sounds good to me. Welcome back. So last time we really dug into some of the potential downsides of AI.
Yeah. It's not all sunshine and roses, is it?
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. I mean, the environmental impact is something we really need to be paying attention to.
For sure. But the good news is
Yeah.
this Capgemini report also lays out some
Okay.
pretty concrete strategies for making AI more sustainable.
Oh, it's good to hear. So what are they suggesting?
Well, they emphasize that it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. It's a complex issue.
Yeah, it's more like a toolkit, you know?
I like that analogy.
We need to use a bunch of different approaches
Makes sense.
that target different parts of the AI lifecycle.
Oh, that's smart. So where do we start?
Well, let's start with the hardware.
Good.
One of the key things they recommend is
Yeah.
developing more energy-efficient hardware,
Okay.
specifically for AI.
That makes sense. So like custom-built chips and stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any companies working on that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
You've got companies like
Yeah.
Google and NVIDIA.
All right. Those are the big players.
Yeah, they're pouring tons of money into developing these chips that are
Mhm.
optimized for machine learning.
So it's like they're designed from the ground up
Right.
to be more efficient.
Exactly.
That's really promising.
It is. And it's not just about the chips themselves.
I
It's
believe
also about how we
Mhm.
design and operate data centers.
Oh, yeah. Those are huge energy hogs.
They are.
I mean, keeping all those servers cool
Yeah,
takes a lot of juice.
it does. And the report talks about
Uh-huh.
implementing more efficient cooling systems,
Okay.
optimizing server utilization.
Right. So we're not wasting energy on idle servers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even exploring alternative energy sources.
Like solar and wind power.
Exactly.
That takes a lot of sense.
So there's a lot of potential.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot we can do
There is.
on the hardware side. But what about
Yeah.
the AI models themselves?
Right.
Can we make those more efficient too?
Totally.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
One approach is what they call model compression.
Model compression. I've heard of that.
It's basically
Yeah.
streamlining the AI model's code,
Right.
getting rid of any unnecessary parameters,
Right.
and optimizing the algorithms.
So making them leaner and meaner.
Yeah, exactly.
But without sacrificing performance. Right.
That's the key. We still want them to work well,
Of course.
but we don't need all the extra baggage.
Makes sense.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
optimizing code for a website.
Okay.
You know, you want it to run smoothly and quickly
Right.
without using up a ton of
Sure.
processing power.
That's a great analogy.
And then another promising area
Okay.
is developing more efficient training methods.
Oh, right. Because
Yeah.
creating these big models
Mhm.
takes a ton of energy.
It does. So researchers are looking into things like
Yeah.
federated learning.
Federated learning now, that's a new one for me.
That's pretty cool.
What is it?
Basically,
Yeah.
instead of collecting all the data
Mm-hmm.
in one central location,
Okay.
which can be really energy intensive.
Yeah, just moving all that data around.
Mhm.
Must take a lot of energy.
Yeah, so with federated learning,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually distributing the training process
Oh, interesting.
across multiple locations.
So it's like decentralized training.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
And it not only saves energy,
Okay.
but it also has some privacy and security benefits.
Oh, wow. Because the data's not all in one place.
Yeah, it's kept localized.
That's a win-win.
It is.
So we've talked about the hardware
Mm-hmm.
and making the models themselves more efficient.
Yeah.
But I imagine
Mm-hmm.
responsible AI usage
Right.
is also going to be key
It is.
in reducing the overall impact.
Yeah, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
both users and developers
Okay.
have a really big role to play.
So what can we do?
Well, it starts with just being mindful
Mm-hmm.
of the resources we're using.
Okay.
Do we really need
Yeah.
to train this massive AI model for
Yeah.
something that could be done
Mm-hmm.
by a smaller one?
Good point.
It's about choosing the right tool for the job,
Absolutely.
just like with anything else.
It's about being efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can also set limits on usage,
Hope.
optimize our queries,
Mm.
and even be strategic
Yeah.
about the timing of our AI tasks.
Like running things.
Yeah.
When energy demand is low.
Right.
Say.
So it's a combination of
Yeah.
individual awareness
Mm.
and smart design choices.
And this is where that idea of
Yeah.
AI return on environment
Mhm.
really comes into play.
It does. It's not just about
Mhm.
minimizing harm,
Mhm.
but about using AI to actually
Yeah.
do good.
Exactly. It's about maximizing its potential.
Right. Can you give us some
Sure.
concrete examples?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So imagine using AI
Yeah.
to optimize energy grids, making them more efficient,
Mm.
reducing our reliance
Yeah.
on fossil fuels.
That would be huge.
Right. Or using AI
Mhm.
to monitor deforestation patterns
Wow.
so we can better manage our forests.
That's a great idea.
And what about using AI
Yeah.
to develop
Mhm.
new sustainable materials or even predict
Yeah.
and mitigate
Mhm.
the effects of climate change?
That's amazing. The possibilities are really
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
endless.
It is. But there's one more piece of the puzzle,
Okay, what's that?
transparency.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
We need to know
Mm-hmm.
what the environmental costs are
Yeah.
associated with AI.
But I imagine that's not always easy.
It's not. Companies are often reluctant to share that kind of information.
It's such a competitive field.
Yeah, trade secrets and all that.
But the report argues that we need some kind of
Okay.
standardized reporting frameworks
Yeah.
and metrics.
So we can compare apples to apples.
Exactly. That makes sense.
It's about creating a level playing field
Right.
where companies can be transparent
Mm-hmm.
without feeling like
Yes.
they're giving away their competitive advantage.
That's a good point.
And this transparency needs to go beyond
Okay.
just energy consumption.
Mm-hmm.
We need to understand the environmental costs
Right.
of the entire AI life cycle,
From start to finish.
from the raw materials
Yeah.
to the manufacturing
Yeah.
to the disposal.
The whole shebang.
It's about looking at the big picture.
Absolutely.
And this is where collaboration becomes so important.
Yeah, we need everyone
Yeah.
to be on the same page.
Developers, researchers, policymakers,
Mm-hmm.
even users.
It's a team effort.
It is.
So we've got this roadmap
Yeah.
for a more sustainable AI future.
Efficient hardware, smarter models, responsible usage, focus on AI for good,
Mm-hmm.
and a commitment to transparency.
It's a tall order,
It is a tall order.
but it feels possible.
It does. But who's actually responsible? All right, that's the
For
question.
making it all happen.
That's what we're going to explore next time,
Okay, so stay tuned for part 3.
where we'll figure out who needs to step up and lead the charge.
To make AI truly sustainable.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle that big question.
Yeah, the million-dollar question, right?
Who's ultimately responsible for making sure all this happens?
Who's going to drive AI towards a more sustainable future?
Because it's easy to just point the finger at, like, big tech and be like,
Yeah.
you guys figure it out.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap.
But it's obviously way more complicated than that.
This is a shared responsibility.
Mhm.
It's going to take all of us.
All of us.
Yeah, well, governments, researchers, developers,
Okay.
and yes, even everyday users.
Wow. So we all have a role to play.
We do, every single one of us.
Okay, so let's break it down then.
Sounds good.
Let's start with those big tech companies.
Okay.
What can they do
Well, they have the resources
Mm-hmm.
and the influence.
to make a real difference?
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, they need to prioritize sustainability
Okay.
right from the get-go
From the very beginning, day one.
of the development process.
Okay, so we're talking about
Mhm.
embedding environmental considerations
Okay.
into every single stage.
So not just like
Mm.
meeting the bare minimum requirements.
It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, like going above and beyond.
Setting ambitious goals,
Mm,
investing in R&D.
right. And being transparent about their
Absolutely.
progress.
We need to see what they're doing.
Yeah, so they can really be leaders in this space.
Exactly. They have the power to set the standard.
Now, what about governments?
Governments.
Yeah, what role do they play in all of this?
Well, they're the ones who set the rules of the game.
Okay.
Right? They create the policies
Uh-huh.
that encourage sustainable development.
So like what kinds of policies are we talking about?
Well, it could be things like tax incentives.
For companies investing in green AI, or funding research into more efficient technologies,
Right.
or even setting energy consumption standards.
So making it a requirement.
Exact, not just a suggestion.
And they can also help with international collaboration.
Absolutely. This is a global issue.
Mhm.
It needs a global response.
Okay, so we've got big tech, we've got governments. Now what about the researchers?
The brilliant minds pushing the boundaries of AI.
What's their responsibility in all of this?
They need to make sure
Yeah.
that sustainability stays front and center.
Okay, so not just focusing on
Right.
making the coolest, newest AI.
It's got to be sustainable AI.
Sustainable AI.
That's the future.
So they need to prioritize research into
Absolutely.
more efficient algorithms, new computing architectures,
Yeah.
even AI systems designed specifically
Oh,
for
sure. It's interesting.
environmental applications.
So using AI to help the environment.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It is.
And then, of course, we have
Yeah.
The developers.
Right. The ones who take all that research
Mhm.
and actually turn it into something we can use.
they're the bridge builders.
Yeah. What can they do?
They need to be making conscious choices
Okay.
at every step of the development process.
So thinking about sustainability
From the very beginning,
throughout the entire process.
choosing the right tools,
Yeah.
prioritizing efficiency,
And building sustainability.
right into the core of their applications.
It's like a mindset shift.
It is a way of thinking.
And then last but not least,
Yeah.
there's us,
The users.
the everyday people.
We have a role to play too.
Really?
Absolutely.
But what can we actually do?
Well, we can vote with our wallets,
Okay.
support companies that are making sustainability a priority, and we can demand more transparency.
So holding companies accountable.
Exactly. And we can also be more mindful
Okay.
of our own AI usage.
You mean like...
Yeah, choosing more efficient apps, being aware of how much we're using.
Right. So it's not just about what other people are doing.
It's about what we're doing too.
Yeah. We all have a part to play.
We do. It's a collective effort.
And it's not just about minimizing the negative impact.
Right. It's about
Yeah.
using AI to actually make a positive impact.
So turning AI into a force for good,
That's the ultimate goal.
using it to create a better future for everyone.
Exactly. A healthier, more sustainable planet.
This has been an amazing conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's clear that the future of AI
Yeah.
is intertwined with the future of our planet
It's up to all of us.
to make sure that future is a bright one.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI and sustainability.